My name is Folake Adeniyi Adeleye, and you are listening to Because It's There podcast with Saray Khumalo.
Because It's There with Saray Khumalo is proudly sponsored by Vuma.
In a world of possibilities, our choices define who we are. We can choose to simply get things done, but we choose to make a difference. We can choose to go far, or we can choose to go further. We choose great over good every time because we can. And because we can, we must. We don't just act, we activate. When we move forward. Instead of simply providing access, we see the potential for success. Because where others see data, we see dreams. To us, connecting means more than plugs and ports. We exist to empower ordinary people to do extraordinary things. We aim higher and we choose to do more. We don't wait for opportunities. We create them. Our choices define us, and when faced with the choice, we always choose extraordinary.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Because It's There, a podcast about leadership, a podcast that reminds us that in spite everything that's going on around us, our own insecurities, we are all leaders and we are amazing. And through this podcast, I've been able to source amazing people. And today is no exception. We've got an amazing executive, an amazing coach by the name of Folake. Folake, welcome to Because It's There.
Thank you, Sarah. Always a pleasure to share a platform with you. It was difficult to say no, actually.
Absolutely amazing. So today we actually are going to talk about managing an executive transition, which is something that I know you're passionate about. But before we get into that, I want to start with something that's easy. You know, I know that you are passionate about cuisines and cooking. And I want you to finish this sentence. My comfort cuisine during lockdown has been?
My comfort cuisine during lockdown has been basmati rice and ayamashe. Ayamashe is a Nigerian delicacy where you fry ground pepper with green peppers actually in oil, okay, and then you cut all sorts of meats in it. So whether it's beef, whether it's pork, whether it's goat meat, whether it's tripe, everything you actually just have together. So it's like a really melting pot, of all sorts of meats. So yeah, for me, I can't get enough of it, and that's even something that my housekeeper, who is actually South African, I've actually taught her to make it, and she makes it better than I do right now. So DK is the champion of basmati rice and ayamashe in my house now.
Fantastic. I bet it's very hot. It doesn't come mild at all.
Spicy to the core, but of course you can regulate it as you want, but yes, it is spicy. It's not for the faint-hearted, Sarah.
Oh, wow. So let's get into it, really. You have spent the better part of your career helping senior level executives succeed. You seem to know what it is to fail, how to grow from that in a highly disruptive environment, and really a fast-paced environment. If I look at your career, what are the three key success factors that any executive in transition should be aware of?
It's an interesting question, Sarah, and that's because I must admit that in my career, I have seen executives, rise and fall and not really able to make that transition. And it was partly why I became an executive career and transitions coach, So I think the first thing I would say is one of my favorite quotes, and I practically came up with this. The most powerful professional, or probably the most powerful executive in the room, is the one that is both self-aware and intentional. So let's start with that. It does start with self-awareness and intentionality. Now, intentionality onto what? What I would say is one of these, my favorite, and you know it as well, Sarah. I talk about this all the time. That VIP acronym that stands for visibility, I for influence. I know you love intentionality. And then P for presence. Yeah. So whilst you are in transition, what's your visibility strategy? What is that? What are those actions that you will take that breed your credibility? Remember, it's not just to build it, it's to actually breed your, your credibility in the minds of those that matter. Yes. And therefore, how do you now become more, visible? The second, of course, is influence. How will you strengthen your influence just beyond your title, beyond your office? And this really is about how you manage up, that is your manager, your manager's peers, the senior level executives. How do you manage sideways? That is your peers, who are your allies, who are your, your confidants, who are your friendly rivals, building relationships as you go along, and of course, managing down. Managing down is not just about mentoring, but it's also about knowing those that have the influence, and therefore being able to observe how they use and they wield that influence, even at junior levels. So influence becomes very important. One of my favorites is the P, and that is presence. Presence is about how you really use that executive voice. And that's about knowing your audience, how you communicate, managing your emotions, being given to emotional intelligence. And of course, the strategy and solutions that you also bring to bear. Presence is really more about how do people perceive you, especially as you own the room. And owning the room means that you are not only self-assured, but there is something that you're bringing to the table that cannot be missed. All right? But I always say that executive presence also starts with how you feel. You cannot give what you don't have. If you're not clear about your values, if you do not know your strengths, it is then difficult for you to show up authentically, right? Presence is also about how you are relatable. It's very much about how you communicate, how you show up in terms of your appearance. People think executive presence is just about your appearance. It is not. It's about those different things, how you feel, what you're able to give back, your appearance, and so on and so forth. Yeah? So I would say it's important to keep that VIP in mind, but starting with self-awareness and intentionality.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it's probably linked to your brand. Who is this brand that you brought onto the table? Absolutely love it. VIP is something that I've adopted. I think I believe in that, and I absolutely love how you've been able to use it in your coaching. So when did you realize that you were born to elevate women? I know that you coach male, females, and so forth, but you're very passionate about elevating women. When did you realize that this is your thing? And was it something that just you woke up and said, this is it? Have you always been like this? Or it was a journey? Take us through that.
I believe it was a journey, just like purpose is a journey. Yeah. A lot of people think purpose is really about that big bang and somebody standing by you and pointing you in that direction. That is your purpose. No. Purpose for me continues to evolve, and, so you are right about my having a soft spot for women. you know. And when did I discover it? You know, I think it's always been there, right?
Yeah.
The real thing now is about how, at what point did I realize that I could express myself, I could express it, I could unleash it. And perhaps that even started maybe even as far back as school, where not just about being, you know, talkative, but I would say things and people would want to listen, you know, especially, you know, my girlfriends. It was like, you know, oh, Folake, you're the one. I want to know what you have to say about this issue. So even among my friends, Sarah, I was always sort of like the mother hen, the one whose advice everyone just wanted to hear. You know, there was always that wisdom that was there beyond my years. And even for friends who were older, it was always about, Folake, I want to know what you have to say.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, getting into university and, you know, graduating then meant that, you know, I was very clear that I didn't want to stare into a microscope for the rest of my career. So I remember I was a rebel at the time, saying, no, I want to do, you know, something else. And that sort of just surprised quite a lot of people, like, well, you read sciences, why do you want to go for something in consulting? And it, you know, there was just that boldness, that, yeah, because I can, you know, I don't mind doing something different. I didn't mind being non-conformist, you know, or the odd one out in the room, you know. So again, a lot of this then really led me to really that discovery. And I think it was really more in my career where I became a bit more outspoken about the way, you know, women were treated, you know, I mean, versus the men. I just saw that there was a difference, but a lot of it was that women were not speaking out for themselves, you know? And a lot of times in HR, getting into trouble, in fact, Sarah, I would be the spokesperson. I was like, well, aren't you being biased? I was like, well, no, aren't you being biased by saying that I'm being biased? You know? And that discourse and that conversation will always sort of be a tug of war that I didn't really mind stepping into. So I will say that it's really been an evolution. And then for those who then were coming up the career ladder, where I had then, you know, was climbing the career ladder to executive levels, there were aspiring executives, and there was always something to tell them. And I saw that, you know, they were quick to gather around the table. Like, Folake, you know, we want to know what you have to say. And I had to quickly bring them together, where I had to bring my mentees together under an umbrella. At that time, Sarah, I called it Beyond Comfort Zones, you know, and I'm still very much in touch with them today, where it was really just about how do you survive and how do you thrive in a paternalistic corporate environment, you know. And there were just tips and tricks that I had learned along the way that I never thought would even be so valuable. I just thought I was being myself in terms of, you know, not taking no for an answer, and really just pushing through the barriers and, you know, breaking those barriers. So yes, it's been an evolution, and no, I haven't stopped, and I'm not looking back. And I do believe that women can take their place, you know, and be all that they are supposed to be, whether they are at home, at work, climbing mountains, or even just even just starting a business. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, I'm laughing because when I first became a manager, I noticed that every time you interviewed females as opposed to males, they underplayed their value. You know, you find a female that can do 120 or 50% of what it is that you require, and they'll say, oh, I can try. And a male will have 70% or 50%. Oh no, yeah, they'll come in there and demand more.
Go for it. They just go for it. They don't even think about it. Like, they just go for it.
And I think that needs to change, because I just don't understand where it changes, because we actually have the kids in our bellies for 9 months. You know, we manage homes. What happens when we go out there and suddenly we are
Mm.
followers, and we feel more comfortable to be followers than leaders. And I think we as a generation need to do something about that to ensure that the next generation of girls, they don't take over, but they take their place.
Correct.
Anyway, so it sounds like it's been a journey, and an amazing journey for you. And during this journey, who would you say has been the most important Sherpa? And a Sherpa is a guide on Everest. It's somebody that doesn't climb for you, but takes you to Everest. And sometimes there are Sherpas that only take you up to Everest Base Camp, and others take you all the way to the top. So it may not be one, I don't know, maybe more, but who's been the most important Sherpa on your journey to where you are today?
You know what? I believe that there, on a journey like this, there have been many Sherpas, Sarah.
Yeah.
I am of the Christian faith. And I do believe that, by default, there's treasure in earthen vessels. But I believe that God has a manual, for me, who he created. And therefore, I actually have to go back to that manual from time to time, and therefore going back to God to say, so what would you have me do next? How would you have me do this? And there was a time it was all about, I want to discover my purpose, show me my purpose. And that was him saying also to me, but your purpose is a journey. As you evolve, as you grow and mature, you also evolve into purpose. So I think my Heavenly Father is actually my number one Sherpa, and he's given me that manual, which is his word, to also guide, motivate. The Bible, I always say, is a manual. It's not just for Christians, it's for everybody. It's a manual that you can really look into, take on the principles, and they work for you. That is the truth. My husband I think I would say is another. And it's not just, and I'm not honestly being cliche, Sarah, but my husband is, I married a very good friend of mine, right? So telling the truth without restraint has always been something that has been there from the very beginning, whether you like it or not. So I always say sometimes that I'm not even sure I have an inner critic. Miss Adeniyi Adeleye does the critiquing for me, but definitely out of love, out of really wanting to see you grow. And honestly, I can't have been in a portfolio career today, Sarah, without my husband's guidance, without his support, without his love, as well. So I think that would be it. There are quite a number of people who have come along the way, and here is that, again, that part, just talking about relationships that add to your growth, to your development, to getting you up the mountain. I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. So I will surround myself with the right people. So till today, I have a coach myself, even though I'm a coach. I have a therapist. I keep a confidant, really close, a senior colleague, mentors, who I go to from time to time, a business coach, a mentor coach, as well. So I'm constantly surrounding myself with the right people, but I'm also very guarded about who I allow into my space and who I allow to speak to me. Also because I think to a large extent, I'm clear about what it is that I want. I may not always know the how, but I think the what, has become clearer over time. There is a group of people that I belong to, Sarah, and this would be the number 3 and the number 4 and the final. It's called WIMBIZ. WIMBIZ is WIMBIZ.org. Yeah, that's the website, WIMBIZ. It stands for Women in Management, Business and Public Service. And this is an NGO that stemmed from Nigeria, and I think I can call it practically, Pan-African today. And these were a set of women who came around a table, a kitchen table, Sarah, to say, how can we elevate women, whether in their careers, in their business, in public sector, in nation building, how do we elevate them to where they really ought to be? So whether it's been through programs, whether it's been through flagship, conferences, it's been through mentoring, this set of women have always given me wings. They very quickly helped me to understand that as a woman, I can't have it all. Because being an African woman, Sarah, we grew up thinking, well, do what you can do in your career, but from the time that we were babies, we were being raised to be wives. We were being raised to be caretakers. We were being raised to be, kitchen engineers, as it were, but not necessarily CEOs and, COOs and directors and business owners and, builders of empires. But at Wimbies, I found my permission to be all I definitely could be. And I found that, I found the tools to be able to be so. It wasn't just about talk. There were women that had gone ahead of me who were very easy to emulate. And I must admit, they made it look easy, but they also painstakingly took us through how they did it, and the fact that it was possible. So that mindset, that mind expanding mindset that I can be all that I'm meant to be, and I have permission to have it all, that has been one of the most liberating experiences of my life. I have served on the executive council of Wimbies. I belong to many. I still, assist them, in many endeavors, as well. And I was recently also appointed as a life member of Wimbies, for those who have, really contributed to the cause of women and elevating women in nation building. So Wimbies is really very dear to my heart and really a part of my journey,
wow.
An important part of my journey.
Sounds amazing. I need to look it up. I think, I relate to it. I'm getting excited as you talk about it because, definitely you find that women generally, even girls, are raised to be apologetic about their successes, are raised to play it down, and I think that's got to go because we've got a lot to offer. We even say it, we say, people are hoping to be given a seat at the table. Come on, you've got the seat at the table.
Got it. Yeah, own it. And if you don't even have the seat, go build your own.
Absolutely.
If you don't have a seat at the table, go build your own. Bring that community together. In terms of your beliefs, build your own. Don't wait. Don't wait.
No permission required. On that note, I would love to go into a message from our sponsors that make this podcast possible.
In a world of possibilities, our choices define who we are. We can choose to simply get things done, but we choose to make a difference. We can choose to go far, or we can choose to go further. We choose great over good every time because we can. And because we can, we must. We don't just act, we activate. When we move forward. Instead of simply providing access, we see the potential for success. Because where others see data, we see dreams. To us, connecting means more than plugs and ports. We exist to empower ordinary people to do extraordinary things. We aim higher and we choose to do more. We don't wait for opportunities. We create them. Our choices define us, and when faced with the choice, we always choose extraordinary.
contextualizing Folake. Now we're changing gear. We're coming to you as a corporate person, as a seasoned corporate executive, and with extensive experience in the field of international human resources management, talent management, strategic business partnering, and organizational development. This is a long CV. In leading global multinationals, what are the key factors that have supported you in your own transitions from one to the next? And in fact, not just that, from one country to the next country. I mean, you're now working in South Africa, I'm speaking to you, you're sitting in London. What has facilitated this? Also from corporate with a side hustle that is Cochivet. What has supported you in that respect?
All right, so it's a great question, Sarah, and one that is not always the easiest to answer, only because, of course, as you evolve, there are quite a number of factors that then, help you succeed along the way. But we've talked about people.
Yes.
Okay, we've talked about people that have actually helped on those journeys. But again, going back to the issue of relationship, not just relationships for the sake of it, but I think a lot of what has helped me is nurturing the right relationships, being able to tell when you need who along the way, and not being afraid to ask for help. Remember, I said it before, I'm not one to reinvent the wheel. And therefore, there's always somebody out there. So I have always raised my hand to say, I don't know this. I don't know how to do this. How can you handhold me along the way? But for those who have been there, it's not just a one-off encounter. I have tried to nurture those important relationships along the way, and to also show those people that they are important to me, they are important to my, progress. And therefore, when I think about the relationship with my manager, for example, it was one of really building trust. I remember my manager said to me, if I can learn from you, regarding Africa, then I will I will teach you all about the company that I work for, the current IT company that I work for. So it was a mutually beneficial relationship from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And therefore crossing over into another country, wasn't just about favor, with him. It was about trust. It was about trust. It was like, you know what, over time I have worked with this lady, I can trust her. And that also brings me where you talk about relocation, moving around, you being able to be given to not just maturity, but embracing cultural diversity. Sarah, you talk a lot about that Ubuntu spirit, or should I say the spirit of Ubuntu. Yeah. And that in itself must resonate in everything that you do. So whether you're talking to the Austrian, the South African, the Nigerian, the Kenyan, the Moroccan, the Egyptian, the English, they must really be able to see that, they must be able to see what you are about, first of all. Whether that is integrity, whether that is about lifting others up, whether that is about problem solving, being of help, that needs to be able to resonate with people regardless of what cultures, they are from. Very early, I fell flat on my face when it came to the issue of presence. I remember I lost my job at some point because I wasn't using VIP well, visibility, influence, and presence. Mm-hmm. So I learned to bring that to bear very quickly. I learned from my mistakes early. And that's another thing that has just really helped me succeed. I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, self-reflecting and being true to, no, this is where you messed up. Folake, you messed up here. And being able to take of those lessons and just making sure that certain things do not repeat themselves, being true, staying really true to that path of, okay, what have you learned here? How can you even teach others as well? So being able to be there for others has really contributed to my success, not just as a coach, but as a corporate exec. You know, the business partnering that I do, which is really, you know, which is built out of trust. You know, VPs, SVPs have been able to say, oh, okay, this isn't necessarily about you. You genuinely want to see me succeed, you know, and therefore, okay, so I want you on my team. It is you that I want to work with. So I think a lot of those points have actually just contributed to, yeah, really climbing that executive ladder today.
Talk about losing your job. I know that during this time, that's where, you know, that was the genesis of Coach Yvette, you know, where you transitioned from traditional corporate only into the founder of Coach Yvette. What else, apart from what we know, was the driving force behind the idea of formulating Coach Yvette?
Thank you. That's great question, Sarah. It's funny. Whilst I had a lot to reflect on during my job loss, which was a couple of years ago, you know, Coach Yvette actually stemmed more from wanting to do more, wanting to be more, wanting to give more. I wasn't necessarily, and of course, a lot of our roles in terms of the content of our roles are obviously quite limiting. We are women, we are men, we are people of many different parts. And I realized that my day job just wasn't giving me that. It wasn't giving me all of the fulfillment, all of the meaning, you know, all of who I really could be. I knew that there was more, and it just wasn't on the platform of an IT company was that going to actually happen, you know. And because I really am somebody that I can't stand mediocrity. The spirit of average just it gets me. It I feel like I'm actually going to box somebody thinking about it, you know, Sarah, but people just succumbing to average or just settling for less than they are. I'm getting goose pimples talking about it, you know? So for me, it was about the people that were around me. I really wanted to do more to help them reach into themselves, into the recesses of who they were, who they really were, and for them to see that, you know, you are really more than this. You can take this on. You can be more. You can do better. You can apply yourself and do better. And not only did I not necessarily have the time with a day job, mentoring was also not enough. So I thought, you know what is that secret? How can I help people not just copy and paste what I was saying to them, but actually help them have that same power that I had also, you know, discovered as I was coached along the way. So it really stemmed from really wanting to help people be more than they really are and really unlock and then fulfill that, potential. So I became a coach, and I didn't know at the time that when I was doing the coaching training, I wanted to do more within the company that I work for. And my manager said, okay, come go, be a coach. Yeah, whatever, I'll support you, you know? But it was in looking for more from a purpose and a meaning and being there for others and really attacking and giving the spirit of average no chance that Coach Yvette was birthed. And I remember the day I found out the name, I had thought over almost few weeks. I was talking to just one or two friends saying, I'm looking for a name for this thing. I'm looking for a name for this thing. And I remember the name of Coach Yvette kind of just dropped. And I thought, oh, I'm so sure if I look on Google, that name already appears. I mean, it's going to just tell me 10,000 searches. Lo and behold, Sarah, I went online, I went on Google, The name didn't exist on Facebook. It didn't exist on Twitter. I think I found Coach Ivate, that is a coach who actually, just like you are, Sarah K, you know, I found Coach Ivate.
Yeah.
And the name Coach Ivate didn't exist, nothing. I thought, oh, I remember my heart skipped a bit like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is it. And then, of course, it took another few weeks to then think through the tagline. And I remember I was training with Don Grunwald in Action Factory. He's an NLP, one of South Africa's foremost NLP practitioners. And that's where I trained in NLP. And I remember it was in one of his classes. And I remember that it just really came to me that, yes, Coachivate is actually activating the best you, because the average you just won't do. It has to be about activating the best you. And the tagline just stuck. I remember I still have the notebook where I wrote it down in class, you know, but it was because, again, meaning, purpose, I was listening. I was ready, you know. And I remember this was just on the advent of my move to South Africa. So honestly, I have South Africa to thank for the birthing of Coach Ivate in terms of just really creating that ambience, that environment, to really just help me believe, yeah, I am ready. I'm ready to take this on. And therefore talking to my manager about it, because conflict of interest then needs to be managed. But, you know, it was easy peasy. Again, trust was there. So I felt, okay, as long as you don't do this, you don't do that, yeah, let's sign the dotted lines, go ahead. You know, and today because of that, I coach outside of working hours, and I also commit not to coaching competition, you know, because I am still in full-time employment. But I am thankful to my company for recognizing that, you know, entrepreneurs will emerge even among people that are doing a 9-to-5. So being in a portfolio career, one of the best and most fulfilling experiences of my life.
Wow, that is amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, there are companies out there that are recognizing that people are not just one thing. They can be more. And the more they're fulfilled out there, the better, the more productive they are with the organization.
Correct. And that has thoroughly helped me in my role. And I must say at this point as well, Sarah, that you are also an inspiration from afar. I don't think I've told you that before, but you combine working in the company that you work for. I know you've recently been promoted, so you are kicking ass over there, and you're very much also about taking summits into, you know, just not just a brand that really helps people to believe again, you know, but really also climb mountains, which is something that you would never see a lot of women doing, you know. And I know that you are also a single mom who's also just making sure that your kids have the best of everything. And oh no, kudos to you. Actually, I have to just say that you are that, you know, you are an inspiration even to me as well. So thank you, Sarah, for showing up.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. I know that you are a keynote speaker. I mean, you speak when you are invited, and you do so quite eloquently and passionately. So, you know, keynote speakers there are some that entertain, some educate, and others who inform. But you possess the ability to transform, inspire, a transition. How are you able to speak to both the heart and the mind? Because some of these transitions and getting people to see that they are better than they actually believe they are, it's really about the mind as a starting point.
Oh, interesting one. There are many great speakers out there. And at some point, Sarah, and even listening to the likes of you speak, I don't know how you say I'm eloquent. When you guys hear Sarah speak, honestly, you shouldn't miss our clubhouse rooms. That's for starters, and that's for free, you know. But it's so easy to want to be somebody else, right? But the day that I said to myself that, Sarah, I have a story to tell. I also have been through stuff. I also I'm here to contribute something. When you find that story and you find that why, and you get comfortable about expressing it, authentically, not trying to be anybody else, somebody hears that. Not only sees it, but somebody hears it and is like, oh, there's something authentic about this lady. This lady is speaking to me because you chose to show up. So as a speaker, speaking to the heart then becomes really easy because the real audience, your audience will keep showing up because they know it's about you pouring out. They know it's about you telling your story so that they can come to their own success, so that they can come to their own, meaning, find their own meaning as well. So speaking to the heart then becomes easy. It's about you showing up authentically with your story, being nobody else. Speaking to the mind is then, I believe then we're talking about speaking to the intellect, speaking to the soul, appearing like you are making sense. And this is where practice makes perfect. Because you may have a story, you may have meaning, you may know of your purpose, you may carry that purpose very strongly. You being an astute speaker is a different matter. How do you bring structure into your speaking? How do you tell your story, but at the same time, you keep that story going such that people want to listen to you? How do you ensure that you stick to your, I won't speak outside certain topics. I just won't. There's certain rooms that, you go in and people just, invite you as moderator to the stage. I won't accept because you're expecting me to be a moderator, not asking a question. I'm not going to speak to what I'm not comfortable with. So those are the aspects of making sure that you speak to the mind. And of course, again, I talk about structure. When I want to put something out there and I say, okay, these are the 5 pitfalls that you should avoid when it comes to building an executive resume, I will always put a number there because I know if I go to 4, you are thinking, okay, there's one more, and I will speak through that. I love using acronyms as well in speaking to the mind because people remember, oh, she talked about the 3 C's. Oh, she talked about SHAPE, SHAPE. Oh, she talked about the STAR method, situation, task, action, and result. That's about spirit. It's really building yourself in those 2 areas, telling your story authentically, not shying away from that, and then building structure around your speaking. And that has helped me over time.
Fantastic. I can relate to that. I see you love acronyms. I'm picking that up. I remember a lot of our conversations because of that. So I really appreciate that. What I've noticed is everybody is calling themselves a coach now. How does one who is looking for a coach actually find the right coach for them?
Yes, absolutely great question, Sarah. The first thing I always say to people, think about the outcome. What outcome are you looking for? Until today, when I have an exploratory call with would-be clients, we have to start with the end in mind. Now, some people come to you not even being sure about what the end is, or even having clarity, and therefore you then need to take them through perhaps a clarity session, a clarity call. But we must start with knowing where we are going. It's the same thing in coaching. That then helps you to start to understand the kind of coach that you need. Because a good coach will tell you, I don't coach just anything. Even life coaches don't coach just anything. We have life coaches who focus on trauma. We have life coaches who focus on parenting. We have life coaches who focus on marriage and divorce. We have life coaches who focus on emotional intelligence and mindfulness.
Yeah.
You know, what is it that you are looking for? And you need to be able to ask your coach that question. This is what I really want to be able to do. How can you help me?
Yeah.
I have turned back would-be clients because, again, this is not about the money. You come to me, you must be transformed. Something special must happen to you such that, again, you have that power to move forward and really, be all that you're supposed to be. And one lady came to me and she was sort of just all over the place, didn't know exactly what she wanted, but it was obvious that through certain transitions, she would know in a couple of months. And I said, you know what, let's not do coaching now. When you are clear about this thing, and it will come to you, I asked her a few questions, write down the questions. When this question, the answers come to you in a few months, then come back. It took her almost a year, and I waited. I said, I will be here for you. When you are clear about that thing, you come back. She had started a role. She wasn't really enjoying it. And before going into the next role, she wanted to start transition. I said, no, let's be clear about where it is that you're going. And by the time she started another role, she was like, wow, Coach FAA, as many of them, call me, I'm ready. Now I'm ready. Now I know it's about onboarding and how I want to make my mark in 90 days in a new role. And I said, now you're talking. As opposed to, because as an executive coach, we have to have an outcome.
Yeah.
We have to, and where you are not clear, then let us clarify one or two things. So start with the outcome in mind. That's how you really discover the kind of coach that you really need. Yeah. And for us as coaches, we must also be ready to refer.
Yeah.
Some have come to me where it wasn't just about the chemistry not being there, but I realized, I probably wasn't the coach that they were looking for, because perhaps they were starting at entry level. I coach executive career transitions. I was able to refer them. Yeah. And say, hey, contact so-and-so. She's right up your alley. She's the one that will help you, to do that. Or some who have come to me and I see that, Sarah, this is not a coaching issue. This is more a psychological, issue. And you need to be really open with them, transparent. Say, it's not coaching that you need right now. I believe you should explore therapy, and have one or two names ready who they can explore. Or a friend comes to me and says, Folake, I know it is you. You are the one to coach me. You are the coach, and they finish talking about where they're at. And I'm like,
I'm not the one.
I'm not the one. But you know what? I know who that person is. So we must be ready to refer. So the challenge is for coaches to also stay in your lane. Yeah. If you don't have the technique, you don't have the tools, you don't even have the passion for it, refer. Yeah. But where it is your own forte, your own strength, by all means, help that person fly.
Wow, amazing.
I hope that answers it, Sarah.
It does indeed. It does indeed. Start with the end in mind. And I think the onus is also on coaches to be honest. It's not about the money, it's about the client and how to put them in a better place. So my
and
last
I think, so Sarah, sorry, the last one that I will add, of course, is please look for a qualified coach. Yeah. I won't say certified only, I won't say accredited, because a lot of coaches have been through the requisite training that should take place. Not all of them are credentialed, right? But quite a number are certified. And that's why I say look for a qualified coach. Search them up. If you go to LinkedIn and look at who you are, who you have in common with them, and ask those people, do you know Sarah? Yeah. How long has she been coaching? I see Folake is in corporate. When did she become a coach? How is she doing? So search them out. Are they credentialed? If not, are they certified? Yeah. If they are not certified, have they been through the training that they need to, go through? And there are many certifications out there for coaches. Make sure that you find a coach that is real, that is authentic, but by all means, that is qualified.
Absolutely. And the right fit for you.
Correct.
So, last question. Describe your best failure or your best challenge and how it propelled you forward.
Yes. Oh, there have been many challenges.
Just one.
When I lost my job, and this was because there was a redundancy exercise in the company I was working with at the time. And I remember the head of HR called me into his office and said, Folake, we really don't want to lose you. Why don't you consider doing this role, this role, this role? And I said, but I don't want to settle. That would mean that I'm settling just because of a 9-to-5, just because of a paycheck. That would not be playing to my strengths. And I decided to take a package and I left. But I made sure that during that time of transition, and it wasn't a very easy time, it was a painful transition. Nobody likes rejection, Sarah.
Yeah.
But it really helped me reflect. And the way it helped propel me forward is because I came to the realization of not just being self-assured, but knowing exactly what I wanted to do next. And I wasn't going to settle. So at that time, I was perhaps doing a sub-regional role, maybe managing West Central Africa. And I said, no, I want to do more. I want to manage Africa. I can be the head of Sub-Saharan. And I remember there were a lot of prospects who actually approached me. I was like, well, we have this sub-regional role. Sub-regional. I said, no, this is what I'm going to do. And I remember I would even pass on other names of people to them. And my husband would say at the time, well, okay, interview, at least interview with them. And I'm like, no, I'm not interviewing. I know what I want. I know what I want. And because I anticipated that, because I was just I was very dogged and very determined. When the right thing came along, I recognized it. And it was then a case of just, how do I interview, for it? How do I impress the managers, blah, blah, blah. And I did find myself in that role, but to the things that didn't look like it, I said no. I said no very quickly because I knew I was capable of doing what it scared me to bits, Sarah. I just wasn't going to settle, especially coming from that place, and that job loss. That really helps me reflect. But I came out really believing, no, I can do this. If this person can do this, then I can do this as well, So in my career, that propelled me forward, because I probably would have been gone from here, Sarah, and I would have just ended up here, and then here, and then here. But from there, I went straight there because I chose not to settle.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that was it.
I call it above the clouds. It's just because that's what we can see. It doesn't mean that's what we are capable of doing. We can do a lot more. Folake, thank you so much for your time and for the nuggets and gems that you've been able to drop in the past few minutes. Any last words, anything that you've picked up that is really pressed on your heart that you want to leave our listeners and viewers with at this time?
I think the thing that I would say very quickly is, don't be afraid to be yourself. That comes with practice. It perhaps comes through pain, meaning that you have your own story, but don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't be afraid to be authentic. And it is that takes you higher and higher and higher, through the summit, to the summit, I beg your pardon. So that would definitely be a great place to start. And also build those relationships, nurture those relationships that really help you to climb. And when you get there, put down the ladder, for others to climb up as well. The life here is not just your own. You are here for a reason and to support somebody else. So please keep doing that. And having said that as well, my name is Folake Adeniyi Adeleye, and you are listening to Because It's There podcast with Saray Khumalo.
Because It's There with Saray Khumalo is proudly sponsored by Vuma.